Hi, everybody. Today is Sunday, October 8th, 2023. I am excited for Phillies postseason baseball. And today I thought I'd do a bit of a side project update. And the last video that I did about this was about 4 weeks ago, and I shared my decision to use Svelte and SpeltKit over LiveView after kind of a summer where I kind of experimented with it a little bit and was pretty happy with it and, wanted to go that route. So today, it's been 4 weeks. I thought I'd go over what I've done in those 4 weeks. And so I'm going to start with the GitHub things. So first and foremost, so StudyHall is a project that aims to, here, I'll just read it. I wrote this out. I might as well just read it. StudyHall is an open source courseware platform that aspires, it's very early, to help people publish and consume courses focused on improving programming and technical skills. The early user experience will lean towards maximizing student success through tooling that helps teachers understand student goals and progress, provides streamlined communication tools for asking for and providing help, allows students to provide content feedback to help improve courses over time. You can track early development efforts via the board. So that's StudyHall. It's an open source project. It lives under the StudyHall organization, which feels like overkill for a individual open source project. But there is this thread in my goals that's I really want to make sure that this project can over time become attractive to contributors, and I feel like having it hosted in its own namespace and not under Mike Zornick can help people contribute and feel like they have ownership in this open source project. So anyway, that's why I went that route. So this is the repo. It is a mono repo. So in my summer experiments, I had separate repos for the Elixir backend and the Svelte front end. And one of the kind of lessons I learned was it would just be better to have it in a single repo. For one, as you're developing features, you can make additions to the GraphQL and the Svelte in the same kind of unit of work. And it just kind of makes, keeping track of issues and documentation just a little bit easier. So that's kind of how the repo is set up. So we've got a backend Elixir project, we've got a front end Svelte project, and then we've got some other folders, which we may or may not get into today. The project is being managed via GitHub project, so there's a link here in the README that'll take you to this GitHub project board. I saw this yesterday where the cards disappeared. Anyway, so this is this is the board. I've been using the word cycle to kind of keep track of my iterations, and I'm not tracking them via time. So within a GitHub project, you can create a column that is an iteration, and iterations are time-based. I kind of wanted to just call it cycles and be cycle 1, cycle 2, and I will cut them as I see fit. And so in the early days, I'll probably cut this one soon because it's been 4 weeks and I feel like I've accomplished a lot, and it's kind of a nice unit to be it's done, it's deployed, and now we'll work on next stuff. So maybe that'll be something I do later today. But this is where the board sits. Right now it's pretty basic. There's the current cycle and all the open issues, and I'm just, I haven't gone out of my way to create issues for every little thing I want to do, but if I think of something that I want to come back to, I'll create an issue for it. And I personally call them opportunities because it's this is something we may do. It's not I don't like the word backlog as if this is something I have to do every item on this list. It's this is an opportunity. We might do it. And then, once it's a little better shaped or it's something I want to work on, I'll kind of move it on deck. You can see I have this one unit of work that's kind of in progress for adding postmark for transactional emails. There's a PR up for that. And possibly I'll do another video kind of talking about how I did this maybe tomorrow or later in the week. But couple little notes about PRs. For one, and this works in any GitHub project, you can use if you use the pattern of saying fixes and then an issue number within the body of the PR, you will get that relationship to your project item, And if you want to show it, you basically you want to make sure that you are, when you edit the board, you can configure the fields that you want to see. So for me, I show linked pull request. And you can in fact link more than one pull request. So like there was a thing down here for like do a first pass deployment on render, and I had multiple PRs there. So like I deployed the Elixir thing, and then I think I did this Svelte thing twice as 2 separate PRs. But yeah, so that's some relationships between like the issues and the board. Another thing I'm doing is that I am trying to kind of follow the conventional commits, I think it is. Here, I have it in a decision, actually. Yeah, so like there is this concept called conventional commits, and it kind of encourages you to use a pattern where you say like, fix, give it a scope and then a description, and then you can give it some like more optional things. And by following this rule, in theory, it can kind of help you understand when like breaking changes are introduced, or just generally like construct a reasonable change log. So I'm using that as kind of like a pattern. And inside the PRs is like, that is defined within the title. So one of the things I did, which was kind of cool, was I created a little PR linter. So this will validate, here, let me see if I can show you. This will validate that the PR follows the rules appropriately. So like if you create a PR that doesn't follow the conventional commit styles, it'll like mark it as an X and kind of nudge you in the right direction. That's good for me because like this is a new thing for me, so I kind of help benefit from having those types of things. And the other kind of thing is that the repo itself is configured to default to squash and merge. So all these individual commits will be squashed, and a single merge will happen onto the main branch. And you can kind of see that here, like, they come on. So like there was a chore where I updated the dependencies, and this was related to PR 77. This was a docs update that improved the README. It fixed issue 73. It was PR number 74. And so, hopefully that context is helpful to people to understand, like, why changes happened and if they want to kind of follow up things. And then it's also nice for me to have like a single commit onto main. So if something were to go wrong, I could create a reverse commit and put that back on top, and then, pull back some destructive change if that happened. But yeah, so that's the monorepo, the GitHub project. Other CI things, so like I did migrate, well, here, I'll jump back to the postmark one. So I did migrate some of my historic checks from my previous Elixir project. So I've got separate separate GitHub actions for building the product and running the tests and making sure it compiles with no warnings, running Credo and like unused dependency checks, and then running linters and dialyzer. And you can see they're running pretty fast. So like this is obviously a small project, but with caching in place, this runs 45 seconds, this runs 35 seconds, this is running into a minute. And yeah, I feel like that's pretty satisfactory. But I like the CI stuff. I do only have the CI stuff for the Elixir side right now. I have a to-do item to write some CI tools for the speltkit stuff. I don't even have the Svelte stuff testing right now. Like I'm barely just scratching the surface there, and it's new to me, so I don't have tooling to kind of bring in from a historic project. So that we'll get there eventually, but right now it's mostly the Elixir stuff, getting the CI things. All right, cool. So that was the GitHub stuff. Next, I want to jump into the Elixir stuff. So this is the project, and the basic thing I have right now is just a simple GraphQL endpoint. So I'll come in here and we'll go to Playground, and you can see we've got a mutation that doesn't exist on this branch, so I will just close that. But it's got a basic schema. So the thing that I've done is I'm using Ash, and I've created a course catalog, and inside that course catalog, there are courses. And right now, courses are really simple. A course is made up of attributes, including an ID and a title, and inserted at and updated at. Not very sexy, but like gotta start somewhere. And then like we've got the resource, and we've got the registry that kind of like puts it in. So like that's all the Ashy stuff. And then you can see inside the course Ash resource, you can see I'm declaring like the Postgres related to this. I'm declaring some code interfaces so you can create, update, destroy, get by ID. And then I have my GraphQL stuff. So I'm introducing, the type that is a course. And you can get a course, and you can list courses, and then you can create a course, update a course, or destroy a course. And so in GraphQL land, those translate into these kinds of queries and mutations. So you get a course, get course, you get list courses, create course, destroy course, so forth. I'm going to jump to my preview of this because it's already got the some saved ones, but you can see here, so like you can do query list course, and so I've got one called Cocoa Heads is Cool, Cultural Likes Anime, not spelled right, and then you've got create course, and so if you type in an empty field, you get an error, and if we type in like YouTube demo, it'll create the course, and we'll get back to this, what this looks like in preview later, but that's the GraphQL. So like that's the resource and the GraphQL preview. One other thing I did have to install with this was course stuff. So like when you're doing web development and you've got like a JavaScript front end, and it is going to running a like single page type application. It's basically running an application environment, and it's going to be making calls to like GraphQL endpoints or third-party endpoints. There are these like security checks about like a request from origin type things, like cross-site. I don't know. Course is its own beast. But to solve for that, I'm basically using a package called Corsica, and I'm configuring it with very open things, which is origins of star. I do have a fix me to resolve this, and that is like my style. I typically, if I have something I need to work on, I will write fix me. I will put in a link, and then that link will go to the ticket that needs to happen. But yeah, so that's there, and that is absolutely needed to run the speltkit stuff. And then finally, I'll point out the testing. So one of my ideas with this is I want to test at the, so like one of my like ideals, like values with testing is that I like to test at the user contract level. And so for this application right now, means the GraphQL endpoint. And so I write GraphQL like queries and mutations and test those. And I don't really get into the nitty gritty of like, I'm implementing this GraphQL endpoint with Ash, and that basically allows me that like in the future, if I'm not happy with Ash and I want to like write stuff by hand with like Absinthe, I can do that. And so these are some really basic tests. I haven't really gotten too deep because like the whole goal of this like first pass iteration was just like getting the foundations in place and the thing deploying. So as I start to build out the domain, I expect these tests to kind of get more advanced and involved, but they're there and they're running, and that's good. All right, cool. So that's that. The next thing I want to show is the Svelte stuff. So we'll jump into the front-end SvelteKit project. And you can see some environment things. And what do I want to show off here? So So I'll do run dev, and I'll just run it locally, and we'll see if this even works. So this is speltkit app, very simple. Basically, it is built and configured to have things like Tailwind for styling. I'm using a UI kit called Skeleton, which provides all the UI things. So like it's got its own, rules for like colors and styling and design tokens. And then, it's got all the Tailwindy things, and then it's got some very specific Svelte things for things like app shell and app bar, avatars, all kinds of fun things. I'm hoping to lean on Skeleton, pretty hard. So that's in there, and Houdini is in there. So like, I have a couple like basic pages in here, like support sign up and stuff, but then you got this page, a list of courses from the GraphQL API. So I'm running GraphQL API locally, and this is the list of all the things there. And so the way that looks, really quick, is let's see, I'm going to source, we'll go to routes, we're going to go to the front page because that is what you were looking at. And so you can see like the way Svelte does things is you kind of build your router through like the file system. And so the home page of this project has a file called page.svelte, which is this over here. And then with Houdini, the way it works is you create a file called page.gql, and you can put your GraphQL up here, and that'll act as your page data, which is like a Svelte concept. And then, so like once you have that, you deconstruct it, you grab the list course query, and then for me, I create a local scoped variable called courses, which is either an empty array or the data that came from the GraphQL. And then down here, I just kind of loop through it, and I just show all the courses there. Obviously, this is not a Svelte demo, but this is how it's working. This is kind of a demonstration that, like, yes, Houdini is there, and it's working, and, the apps are talking to each other. Other Svelte mention, unlike my summer demo, this Svelte kit app is using TypeScript. And so you can see different files ending in .ts. And so there is some TypeScript stuff happening. Right now, the TypeScript is mostly enforced, like, it's definitely enforced at build time. I get some help via VS Code extensions and nudges. I'm still kind of learning how TypeScript works with, like, the CI. Like, as I said, I don't have a lot of CI set up yet for Svelte. But the basics are working. All right, cool. So that was Elixir, that was Svelte. Next up is deployment. So in my last side project, I never deployed it, like absolutely never. And I hated that because it kind of led me into a very lulled thing. Now, I never finished the project. I'd kind of decided that I didn't want to deploy it by the end of it. But with this project, because it's like open source and I want to demo things more, I thought it would be helpful to spend a little time early on getting the deployment working. And so for me, I'm using Render to deploy. And I could use Fly.io. I mean, I've definitely tinkered with Fly.io. One of the reasons I'm interested in Render is, for one, I'm already using it for some personal static websites. Render's got some really cool, like, free tooling for that. But the other kind of thing is that, like, Render has managed Postgres. So, like, if you want to do a Postgres database on Fly, like, you're kind of on the hook for, like, creating a compute space, putting Postgres in there and running it. And for a basic side project, that's probably fine. But as you get more interested in, like, deployment for real users, like, I'm concerned about, like, the responsibilities of, like, running Postgres. And this whole project being like a one-man band right now, I'm looking for all of the infrastructure help that I can get from people. And so I'm interested in managed Postgres, which you could do with Fly. You could just do it with, like, another entity and have Fly, reference them. I don't know. But anyway, Using render for now. We'll continue to evaluate render and consider fly.io alternate deployments in the future. But right now with render, basic thing is I had a personal account that I was just doing some, basic static sites for. So for this, I created a team, and I created a team for just there was a couple features that you wanted to like pay for. And then within that team, I have a project, and that project is represented by 3 items, 2 web services, one for the speltkit app, one for the Elixir app, and then a Postgres database for the database. They're all in Oregon. They were last deployed about 8 days ago for database. And the setup is it was pretty good, easy. Like I did it in about 2 hours. And part of that was like learning render's style of things. It is built like the deployment does happen on like bare metal. So there's no like Docker stuff involved. It's more of like, well, here, let me show you. Like when you're in the documentation for like a Phoenix app, it'll show you like, you need to create a kind of like a build script and do some updates for render. And then when you get to like deploying on render, what you do is you create a web service, you pick a runtime, and then you inform it like, this is my build command and this is my start command. And then you have to give it some environment variables, which we'll go into in a second. And that's pretty much it. Like once these 3 are the main thing. You'll see this on the node side as well. You just need to do that. For the secrets, I use a feature they have called environment groups, which lets you define a group and then a bunch of variables inside of that group. For me, I have a single group for everything. Some of these are needed by the Elixir side, some of these are needed by the Svelte side. So like database URL, Elixir version, Erlang version are obviously for the Elixir part of the thing. Node version. Public GraphQL URL is for Node, secret keybase is for Elixir. So these are a little mixed and match, which I'm not sure if I'm in love with, but it's fine for now. And the Elixir version these are the things that kind of override the environment. So like the default Elixir version is pretty low, and I update that to like 115, and I update like Erlang to 26. So you can do with render infrastructure as code. I will look into that in the future. If these were more this deployment was more handcrafted as like a one-off. But you can kind of describe your environment as code and have it build it, and even do things where like if you create a branch and you're building a new feature, you can create a deployment environment for that branch, which is something that I'm interested in. I definitely utilize that in some of my client work. But yeah, so far pretty happy with render. All right, so next up. So what's next for me is one, I want to merge in this postmark work, which is pretty much done. Then a lot of discovery. So I have lots of tickets here for UI discovery projects around some of my ideas about tracking student success and course editing. When I talk about discovery, I'm basically talking about stuff like this. So like I have a folder in here called UX discovery. And so this is kind of like a demo I did that is discovery about, well here, I'll show it locally because I feel like it'll, well, I can show it locally. So we got StudyHall, UX discovery. This is basically like, you know, me sitting in Balsamiq. Just open the Balsamiq file up because that's got the grouping. But this is like me sitting in Balsamiq and like sitting down and thinking about the problem and doing lots of wireframes. And so we start here with this like real high level thing of like, this is the context of the problem. These are the pages I'm going to need. You know, these pages are recognized as things I need, but I'm not going to be working on right now. So like, I'm not going to be working on terms of service, but I probably will make a page that links to, you know, something. And then I get into like the kind of like Basecamp UI breadboarding style, where like you create textual representations of the things you're going to show and the things you're going to ask for, and how the user will interface, with your UI, and how they will flow through it. And so for me, this is like an opportunity to discover like, what do I want to ask for at sign up? How will I expose errors and validation concerns? And, where do I take them when it finishes? Obviously, account registration is a pretty well-known problem, but like there are lots of subtlety like in the differences. And so like part of this discovery process is like going through and looking at how other, vendors are solving the same problem, and being like, oh, like that's a good idea. I'll take that. And then I'll take this over here. And like, and kind of like using that as a form of like inspiration for what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Like when I was working through this, like I was shocked to find out that like, Padilla like has a 6-character password allowance. I'm like, wow, that's really short. I don't want to do that. I want to do, 20 characters, because I'm targeting this as a technical audience. They should already be using a password manager, and I want high entropy in passwords, because I don't want them to be hacked. But so I went through that. So I did this as much to just kind of like get in my head how I want to do discovery for the other work. So start off with like high level concepts, UI breadboarding, and then actual wireframes. And so you can see in this, like in Balsamiq, you can have like, this is the official version, and then like this is the version with errors, and those are the differences. But I did that for sign up and sign in, and the reset password flow, which I didn't draw out, but that's going to involve user emails, which is one of the reasons I had to do Postmark as a ticket earlier this week. So so that's that. I am editing in Balsamiq, and then I export all of the things as PNGs, pretty much so that way when I commit my discovery to the repo, we have image assets that anybody can view. You don't need to have Balsamiq installed to understand things. But yeah, so that's discovery. I have lots of discovery to do. It's probably going to be a big bulk of the next cycle. The other thing I am interested in doing is implementing the registration and account creation stuff. For that, I'll be using like Ash authentication, and obviously like skeleton UI for forms and getting familiar with that. Part of me says like in a lot of client work, I would tell people not to worry about user registration early on in a project, because like your goal in the early days of your project should be to validate like your unique offering to the customer, and nobody cares about authentication. It's just one of those things you have to do. But because I don't know, I feel like I want to get it done, because it is a pretty well-known problem, and hopefully if I'm leaning on Ash authentication, it'll be a quick implementation. And I think it would be nice to have that in there, because that will influence like the GraphQL authentication path, and it'll also influence like the role-based access stuff for things like, people can view a course, people can create courses, but they can only edit the courses that they, own, and things of that nature. So I'm going to do it, but I am going to be leaning a lot of time into the discovery, which is the more interesting UI features. Other things I'm working on, not really represented here in the cycle board, but I have been reading and tinkering with Honeycomb for observability. I'm definitely interested in getting some observability tooling involved with StudyHall, both for my personal curiosities, as well as like I have some client work right now that doesn't have a lot of production observability, and so like I'd like to get more experience with it. In some past projects, I've been able to use tools like Datadog that other people have configured and set up, and it gave me like good vision into like how my API connections were working and were not working in production. But I'm doing that kind of like API work with this new client, but like we don't have the observability tools. And so like when the API stuff fails, it's not easy to understand, why it's failing or what customers it's failing for and how often it's failing. And so I'd like to get better at learning how to set that up inside an Elixir project. So you might see some of that in StudyHall, but maybe not in the next cycle, maybe after that. And then the final thing I have in my notes, and I'm looking at my notes on the side, which is why my eyes are constantly moving, is I'm interested to maybe start doing a mastermind again. I've done masterminds before related to some side projects. Mastermind basically being a group of like 3 to 5 individuals where you come together, every week, every 2 weeks, kind of talk about your project and what your goals are. And it's a good opportunity to kind of like have some people to ask questions and feedback for. And because you have like a long-term relationship with them, they'll have more context about your project and your goals. Most masterminds are geared towards soft like startups. And so StudyHall is an open source project. Eventually I would like to have some monetary, thing involved with it, but it's not like the immediate goal. So it's a little awkward there, but hopefully, if I can find a mastermind that kind of leans towards open source, that would be really cool. So it's on my to-do list. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I don't know. This has been a very long, rambly video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for your time and attention. I will continue doing some updates every once in a while, but you can definitely, subscribe to the repo and watch it, progress. If you have any questions, let me know. And yeah, have a great Sunday, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.